Welcome to In Our Community. I'm Suzanne Barnett, your host, and today I am so pleased and thrilled and honored to introduce my guest, Bhavna Misra. And Bhavna is an independent artist, an illustrator, and an art educator. And here she is. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you are here. But first explain explain those three things. You're an independent artist. What does that mean?
Independent artist, meaning that I am not represented by a gallery. I self-represent myself. So there is no in-between my art and the viewers. So that's why I call myself independent artist.
That's a good definition. What about an illustrator?
Illustrator is typically a person who gives the concept a visual form. So I am one of those people who, if you have an idea and you want me to put it on surface, I do that. So that's where illustrator comes from.
And an art educator.
Art educator because I offer classes, I teach, and I mostly explain my process. And if somebody wants to have their work critiqued, or if somebody wants to learn any part of the art making, I do that. So it's more like teaching arts, but in all kinds of settings.
I see. So you are a very, well, I would call it eclectic, but you're so diversified in your art. I went on your website, and I think we should tell what that is. We'll tell that maybe later. And you are so prolific with your paintings. This is difficult. This is like being on the radio, that we cannot show our viewers your art. So you're going to have to describe them so intimately that you're going to get the viewers to think about it. Okay, first, let me start with you. How did you start? How did you begin as an artist?
I think as far as I can remember, I had been making art. Even as a child, I remember doodling and filling in the spaces and trying to imitate what I considered good art. I would try to copy that. And with a very encouraging environment from my parents, they saw that I had inclination towards making art. They provided me with the best of resources, best of I would say supplies and environment that they could provide, and I picked up quickly. And my mom had some background in arts, although she didn't do it that often, but she introduced me to different media at a very early age. Like she gave me oil paints when I was about 9. And from that point onwards, it always was growing in one form or the other. I would say it's more like I finding art found me. So I was.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's I just was a medium. I mean, I think sometimes even now sometimes I feel that way, that there is something which is out there, and I'm surprised why somebody else did not notice it to capture it. So it's just like that. When I was a child, I would see something, and I would instead of like more like if I would see a beautiful toy, instead of trying to have that toy, I would try to have that toy as a reference so I could draw it. So that was kind of interesting.
That is. So what age would you say you were then?
That was about when I was about say 6 or 7.
Yeah.
So my mom, my mom knew that I had this very strong interest towards art. So she actually kind of tested me on, asking me, do you remember that person? Can you draw that person from memory? And, knowing less that it's a test, I did that. And she was like, I'm sure she's saving that art somewhere. And she told me that, okay, so if I know you want to do it seriously. And at some point, I think when I was about 16 or so, she had one dedicated area for me to create art with. She would have the canvases stretched for me, and she was very encouraging, I say.
I'll say. And that we're just going to go off the subject of that particular experience onto your children. Okay, first of all, people know, I'm sure, realize you're from India, right?
Yes, I am from India.
And you have been married 20 years.
Yes.
And tell about your children. How old are they?
Sure. We are married for, in fact, 19 and a half years, and this December we'll be celebrating our 20th anniversary. And my husband is a software engineer. He works for a software making company, and he writes the codes for them. And I have two children, girl, 11-year-old, and a boy, 7.
Are they artistic?
Oh my gosh, yes, they are.
Are they really?
They are.
No, but what I wanted to say is that, making a general statement, but it seems like the India parents, their first love is their children, and they promote their children, and they give them so much attention and so forth. So talk about that just for a moment, because I think the audience would really like to hear that.
Yes, I think you're right when you made that statement about Indian parents. I should know firsthand because my parents were Indian parents. So, and they put education first, no matter what. And I'm very thankful that they made sacrifices on behalf of us, the children. Mostly in terms of giving us direct quality time. And that's something which I feel nurtured the deep sense of security and the confidence that I think is something rest of the foundation has been laid upon. And when I became a mother, that was something that was I wanted to make sure that rest of the things go down in the priority list and my children come first, like any other parent, in fact.
Yes.
And in terms of, yes, a career transition, it did bring me to change from my very, not just 9 to 5, let's say 8 to 6 job. I had to cut down on that to be with my children and be with them, not just physically, but be present with them emotionally. Mm-hmm. And actually, I'll go into more details that kind of led to my professional journey into arts.
And by the way, you were trained as a physicist and an electrical engineer. And that's so opposite, isn't it, of being an artist? I mean, you could be an artist in those fields, but you're the kind of art that you do.
That's actually so interesting you say that. To be fair, these two fields are actually complementary to each other.
Really?
Yes, it is.
In what way?
I like to say that the color, that is the central part of art making, is also studied with equal interest by physicists and the engineers in terms of breaking it down into whether it's wavelength, whether it's temperature, whether it's within our viewing range, outside the viewing range, how does it relate to us? So it's basically, I would say it's just a different perspective on the same thing.
Boy, this is new information for me. So tell about the kind of art that you do.
Sure. I most times, like 99% of times, I make two-dimensional, on the surface, illustrative art, which is more into the category of realism, if you really want to define it into a style. But it's mostly about catching an expression, be it a landscape or a person or animal, and interpreting it into an accurate and let's just say delightful presentation.
What's your favorite? That's a terrible question, but it makes you it makes you really.
I think portraiture has to be my favorite.
Really?
Yes.
And what does that do for you? Why is that so interesting for you?
Portraiture, I feel that when let me just quickly say about the other fields.
Okay.
And say, for example, if I'm doing a still life, it's the very idea that it's still life kind of bothers me.
Oh, really? Oh, that's interesting.
That it's still, why something has to be still when everything is moving so fast.
Yeah.
Like with time. So I do still life, but I try to put some life into it, not keeping it too still. And my finished work does not have an opinion about it. So if I'm painting a cup, my cup cannot tell me back how it feels about it, which is quite opposite to portraiture, where my subject almost always have an opinion about how the piece turns out.
Could you give an example of that?
Sure. For one of my series, what I did was when I was studying portraiture, and I decided that I would go and explore it more. So I checked with my friends, my family, and if they wanted to be part of this series, and most of them did. After, when I was well within into it, I realized that I am doing, not from their sitting. They used to sit for me, or I'll take their picture and do the portrait. So I was not doing the portraiture from their sitting for me. I was doing it from my memory, because they were my friends. I knew them, and I was kind of capturing their personality from my own experiences. And at that point, I had to stop and figure it out, that why I'm doing this series. I was doing it to learn more, understand more, to be with, to capture that uniqueness of people that, other people hold. So at that point, I decided to make portraits of people whom I don't know already. So that way, it will be a real test for me, and I challenge myself to capture that one something that, that person, a personality has so many things going on. Everybody has, different expressions at any given point, and to capture that just one right expression, which is going to last forever on a surface. So when I did it for strangers, and I captured it, and they gave me the feedback that yes, this is something they like about themselves.
How did you do that?
So that self-imposed challenge actually helped me understand that how we see ourselves and how others see us, it's actually, sometimes it's quite close, but many times it's very different. And if, as an artist, if I am, if I'm trying to paint them and trying to capture something, then why am I doing it? Why don't I just take a picture? And why don't we have take the help of the camera? And I realized that this is a human, trying to get the best of another human being, and trying to, not just capture it, but show it back to that person. See how unique you are, how pretty you are.
I don't think I'd ever want my portrait done. because I want to be gorgeous, and I know I'm not. So
Oh, come on.
no,
Yes,
no,
don't
no,
say that.
no. But I think that must be some very special talent that you have. And oh, thank you. That's okay. Yeah, that you have.
It's I would
No,
say
I mean that. How do you capture that? I mean, excuse me. How do you feel that?
that's a very good question.
yeah.
It took me a while to really understand
Yeah.
that. So, when it's a portrait, there are two things going on at the same time. One, it has to be accurate, because if there is no likeness, there is no point in portraiture. So one, I say this is more like a technical aspect. Second is to capture the personality. You have to be, I think, you have to have that attitude of compassion to get the best out of a person. When you combine the two, I think that's very humane I think that should be the purpose of portraiture, to use your talent, your technical information, your knowledge, to put into something which is useful for someone, not just something to look at, but to see that yes, there is always a pretty side of myself.
And it's so interesting how we think of what we consider pretty or not pretty.
Yes.
And do you think that it's really within us, or because of all the social media? Like if you have to be 25 years old and blonde and 6 feet tall, with a perfect figure. So do you think that most of these young people must feel very inadequate when they don't look like that? How do you feel about that?
So it's such a good question, and thank you for asking this. I have a 12-year-old at home, and it's something I had thought a lot about, because it's very interesting, why we like something, why we like ourselves, or why we like a celeb, or why do we? Because we have a preconceived notion of beauty that's been imposed upon us, that this is what is supposed to be beautiful. Just for a second, if we stop and realize, no, you don't have to follow any rules of beauty. You get to make your own rules of beauty, which comes from, definitely it comes from within you. That what is that you consider beautiful. Once you have that, and once you are very confident about it, you will see, you'll find beauty everywhere, in every person. It's like hard to not notice beauty.
You are very special. You know that, you really are. But I think this is very important, what we've been talking about. We're going to do another show too, and we're going to talk also about some of the other aspects of your art. But I feel that for me, and I've done a lot of interviews, but to meet someone like you, and I'm an old lady and you're a young lady, no, but you are a very inspiring person. And wouldn't it be wonderful if that could be, your message about beauty and about art, if that could be spread? Do you think it ever will be spread, that we as humans won't be so worried? Our egos are so hard to live with, and in these times it's so difficult, especially for children. Like, do you think that you got it across with your 12-year-old, what you just said about beauty?
Yeah, it's such a it's a deep question. In fact, it's so important, and yet it's so trivial. The concept of beauty. I'm not sure, because my own child is has not come to realize that there is a value attached to one concept over other.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, there is, like you said, in these times, it's very important that we choose what we want to choose, what we want to see, what we want to believe, and what do we want to share. And we have to be informed, but we have to be rightly informed. There is so much information right now that it has become almost toxic, that we need to sort it out, figure it out, what's right for us, what do we need, because it's unfortunate that bad information travels so much faster and to such a wider audience compared to what's right or how it should be. But we should be very hopeful about it, because there are always there is hope, and I strongly believe that people are sincere in their efforts to bring change, or no matter how big or small, they're willing to do their part. And even if there are a handful of people among us who keep doing what they believe in and they keep doing it, it's always possible to stay positive and keep nourishing, the younger generation with the right kind of information, right kind of knowledge, and I have hope.
Maybe you should give up art and be a public speaker. Or minister, a lady minister. No, but it's so interesting about artists. I think artists do think maybe differently.
Yeah.
And when I say artists, there are sculptors and there are musicians and so forth, that there's something different in the brain, that it's a sensitivity or something.
Possible.
Don't you think?
I kind of.
I mean, for you.
You know what? I won't disagree to that, but I would say there are other people in other non-artsy fields who are